Good evening, Rehovot, Boker Tov in Bangor. Greetings to all of our friends of Israel around the United States, in Israel, around the world. My name is Wayne Firestone. I'm the executive director of the America-Israel Friendship League. And boy, do I like going on virtual tours with Reuven Solomon. Reuven, it's good to have you back after a little bit of a break. You have a very nice additional reason to celebrate the new year with a ninth grandson. So we are grandchild, this one a grandson. We are excited for you. We're excited to have you back. And in a moment, just looking at that beautiful landscape and seascape of Eilat, which many of us miss. I miss it dearly, haven't been there in years, and I can't wait for you to show us what Eilat has become. Lots of new surprises to share with us. First, I want to ask, one of my endearing memories from Eilat is going to the Marine Observatory, and I know you've got some beautiful shots of the aquarium. So maybe we'll put out to our robust audience today, what is the last aquarium you visited? Was it something in your own backyard? Was it something in your kid's room that sort of bubbled around? Was it one of those beautiful big aquariums that we have in different parts of the country and the world? And then we'll talk about just how special the marine experience on land and on water is in Eilat. So put something in the chat if you're with us on whether it's live on Facebook or on Zoom today. And we'd love to hear about around the world. I see the Seattle Aquarium. Somebody just visited recently. Vancouver's Aquarium. All the Canadians are going to the aquarium. So we've got someone who said Eilat. Last one's in Eilat. And we know it's a great way to experience one step removed, which is sort of like what we're doing today on our virtual visit to Eilat. So Reuven, for all those people like me who haven't actually been to Eilat in a long time, I guess there's quite an awful lot to see that has changed over time. Tell us a little about what we're going to get to see with you today.
Shalom, Wayne, and shalom to all our friends of the AIFL. Today, we're going to where, if we had snowbirds in Israel, the snowbirds would go during the winter months, our Red Sea resort city, Eilat. It's a city that has some 12 kilometers of beach, some very urban style beach, and some almost in their natural environment with coral reefs. We have weather that, wow, in summer may be a little too hot sometimes, but the humidity is between 20 to 30%, which makes it bearable. The average temperatures in summer, 40 and above Celsius, of course. In Fahrenheit, I'll tell you that is, here we are, Fahrenheit, what's the weather there like? 80 degrees, 78 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer. And it doesn't get any colder in the winter, usually than 62, 63 Fahrenheit. So it's an ideal place for a holiday. I want to take you there today to show you some of the attractions, to tell you a little bit about the city, its history, and so on. And hopefully, it'll be the forerunner for an actual visit to Eilat and to Israel as soon as the skies are really open. So first of all, let me show you where Eilat actually is situated. The Red Sea resort city, Eilat. And on the next slide, you shall see the map of where Eilat actually is positioned. As you can see in the enlargement on the right-hand side, Eilat is right at the southern tip of Israel, the furthest point south almost the furthest point south, because there's, of course, the Eilat border crossing with Egypt that is a few hundred meters, a couple of hundred meters south of the center of the city. But Eilat is really on the very southern tip of Israel, where it is very strategically placed. It is on two border crossings where, thank goodness, we have peace with the two neighbors today, and the border crossings can be crossed by everyone, including Israelis. At the Taba crossing into Egypt south, and of course, east into Jordan. We'll talk about the convenience of this location in its site. From Eilat, we can actually see, without a binoculars, Saudi Arabia. That links up with Jordan across from the Gulf of Aqaba. On the next slide, I will introduce you to how Eilat started. You know, the name Eilat, sometimes spelled Elath, was a new name from a very old name. The very old name was a city that came into the possession of Solomon in the days of the temple, where it was actually situated a few kilometers across east from Eilat in what is today Jordan, Etzion Gaba, that was sometimes called Elath. So the Eilat of today is not where the biblical Eilat was, but it's close. What was at Eilat was from the 9th century onwards, 9th century AD onwards, because it's right in the desert, a little town or township called al-Rashrash. What a name, al-Rashrash, obviously an Arabic name. And as many people know in Arabic, means the mother of, and Rashrash is a little bit problematic to interpret, because maybe it was intended as a sound, Rashrash, of the wind that whistles through Eilat sometimes, or maybe it's the repeat of a word that you would translate in English to strew, that is to spread finely whatever you were doing over a larger surface. And so one could interpret the al-Rashrash name to the mother of the strewers, someone who strews. And this actually links up with an old Arab legend, that this township was a stop on the way to Mecca for anyone coming from Damascus and from Cairo. And they did this on foot, as you know, for the Hajj. And they would pass through this little town called al-Rashrash, where there was a woman, a mother, the mother of strewing, who would strew their tired feet and sore feet with some herbs that she would find and grind, and it would specially soothe their feet, and hence the name al-Rashrash. But in modern times, it was only in the British Mandate period, that you may remember begins in 1917, it was a site where there was a British police station of 5 mud brick huts like the ones you see there. And of course, on the 14th of May 1948, the Brits were no longer there. The Jordanians came across the border and across their international border and settled in these huts, these mud brick huts that were the town of al-Rashrash, even though Eilat, or what became known as Eilat, al-Rashrash, was actually in the Israeli part of the partition plan. Now, on the 10th of March, 1949, towards the very end of the War of Independence, as Israel was moving south claiming the lands that in the War of Independence, it became known that the Jordanians who had possession of al-Rashrash had rushed across the other side of the border, and al-Rashrash was vacated. This began a race between two battalions, a Negev battalion and the Golani battalion, to see who would raise the flag on this town that was the southern tip of the partition planned Israel. Well, the Negev brigade made it a few hours before the Golani. And in the next slide, you shall see how they were unprepared for their arrival at al-Rashrash, because they did not have a flag with them, an Israeli flag with them. And what do when you get to an area that you claim is yours? You put up your flag. The flagpole was there, but no flag. So what do? They took a sheet, a white sheet, cut it up into the size of a flag, and they had some more black than blue ink that they painted two stripes on. No one really knew how to do the Shield of David, the Magen David in the center of the flag. So they ripped off a red Magen David from one of the first aid kits that they had and sewed it where it should be on the flag. And that's what we call the ink flag that was raised at al-Rashrash, that a year later, actually less than a year later, got its name, Eilat, from the biblical town that was across the border. Today, this flag and the raising of the flag is we don't know what happened to the flag, incidentally, is commemorated by a monument that you're going to see in the next slide, in a very prominent place in Eilat, outside the the mall that we call the Sea Mall, which is a major mall in Eilat. And there today, in the next slide, you shall see the monument that stands at the right spot where the flag is raised, where in 1949, there were 5 clay brick huts, buildings that stood there. And today, unfortunately, because it wasn't really realized what the heritage value these buildings had, they were moved, destroyed, but one, thank goodness, remains, and by that one, the monument stands. So in the next slide, you shall see this monument to the ink flag raising at al-Rashrash. So that's the story of al-Rashrash. I want to now take you into Eilat and the way it looked in 1963. In the next slide, you shall see Eilat, 1963. Across the Gulf, we call it the Bay of Eilat. The Jordanians call it the Aqaba, Gulf of Aqaba. But you can see that at this stage, not only Eilat is not really developed, neither is Aqaba on the other side of this Gulf or bay that comes in from the Red Sea. And at this stage, in 1963, Eilat had the population of 700 people. In the next slide, which is actually a video, you're going to see a little bit of the old Eilat. And this video actually predates 1963, as you can see. This film clip and the rest of the old film clips that you're going to be seeing comes from the Steven Spielberg Israeli film archive. A couple of short clips that I want to show you that we are fortunate to have from Eilat in its earliest days. Of course, the film, when it was actually filmed, was in black and white, and it's enhancement that give us a sense of a little bit of the color. We're talking about the 60s, 1963 in Eilat. The population, of course, rises as time goes on, and by 1972, there were some 13,000 people in Eilat. Wow. 1983, the population grows to 19,000. And it increases with industry, the Timna mines that are nearby, with people who have the pioneering spirit of going to the end of the world to settle it. And thus, today, Eilat, you could consider it probably our newest city. It's much younger than Tel Aviv because it's really only established in 1950, when it gets its name in 1949, Eilat. And today the population is close to 52,000. So a city that has grown rapidly. You can see the old Egged buses. And anyone who was looking for pioneer life went to Eilat. You can imagine at first, the population was largely male. In fact, during the time these film clips were taken in the early 1950s, in fact, in 1953, of the 700 residents of Eilat, I'm talking about permanent residents of Eilat, the males outnumbered the females by 14-1. 14-1. This is a little bit of a clip of modern day Eilat, as you can see, with a lot of open spaces, lots of malls and entertainment centers. And they have actually managed with desalination and other means of even creating a botanical garden in Eilat. So all the restrictions through history of inability to sustain any sort of normal life in Eilat with modern methods can be overcome. You know, Eilat has a yearly rainfall of 1.1 inch a year. That's its rainfall. And it usually happens in just a few days. And then the rain just disappears. And it means that in most places, that would be desert. As you can see, some of it here and there, still a little bit desert. But with modern technology, the desert can be green with housing, with very modern housing, as you can see, IMAX theater in the center of town, and a vibrant city. You're getting a view of the hotels here as the video clip comes to an end. And I'm going to take you to yet another video clip. And this one, just an old video clip from the same archives of immigrants to Eilat. We're talking here about the 1950s, in the mid-1950s, when the last of the Jews of Yemen who missed the magic carpet ride that came almost immediately after Israel's independence, flying into a newborn Israel. Here we have Yemenite immigrants coming on the first ships coming into Eilat, some of the very first ships coming into Eilat, immigrants in the 1950s who land almost a decade after the magic carpet, Yemenite immigrants into Eilat. You know, a sizable population of Eilat to this day has its Yemenite roots. And yearly, we have in Eilat a festival called the Temaniyah, which means the Yemenite festival, where a few nights, almost a week, of festivities with Yemenite music and Yemenite food and Yemenite celebration in the middle of Eilat, and it attracts lots and lots of visitors. Eilat, here you get also an indication of their lifestyle. These implements that you're seeing here are desert coolers. I'm sure those of you in Arizona and some other places still use them, the more modern desert coolers. But this was for many, many decades the method of cooling in Eilat. One more film clip on the next film, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an indication of early nightlife in Eilat and show you the changes. As I said, the males, 14 males to 1 female in the early days of Eilat that you're seeing here. And that'll help you understand the electricity that runs through this bar nightclub. Incidentally, for many years it continued to exist, called the End of the World nightclub. For many years it existed, and you can imagine the excitement in the nightclub when a female walks into the club. The bell rings and everyone turns around to see, wow, who's arriving?
That looks very 1960s, Reuven.
It's 1950s, actually, 1950s, the later 1950s. But unfortunately for the guys there, she comes accompanied with a partner. So they go back to their drinks. And the club, as I said, lasted for quite a few years, the End of the World Club. Today, entertainment in Eilat is mainly outdoors. You have lots of nightclubs, of course, lots of pubs and clubs. And because of the wonderful weather year round, you can have outdoor activities with Luna Park-like in the center of town, where if you had the courage, or maybe, I don't want to say stupidity, of getting on one of these crazy rides, you're going to see one of them that the kids line up for, kids, sometimes not just kids, where you're filmed. 2 people sit in that ball that you see there, that ball going up in the air and coming down again, strapped into seats with a camera trained on them. So every word and every gesture and every facial expression they show is seen very clearly. And towards the end of this short video of nightlife in Eilat, you're going to see the fireball and how crazy it would be for people to actually get on. But there's always a lineup and a waiting list. There's the ball. 2 people are sitting in it, free drop, and up again it goes and down again it comes. You'd have to pay me and I still wouldn't get on it. But that's me.
Something for everyone, Reuven.
There's something for everyone, not for me though. And now the final video I want to show you is the old airport in Eilat. And you're going to see the new one as well. Eilat Airport was opened in 1949, and it's literally today in the very center of town. It's no longer operating, of course. I'll tell you about that in a moment. And many of the people, look at them closely, you'll see a lot of, between the visitors and other people there, a lot of bureaucrats. Because at first, the government officials actually flew in and flew out of Eilat, flew in the morning and flew out in the evening. It's a short flight. In those days, possibly 40, 50 minutes. So they flew in and flew out. And today, that airport has been totally scrapped. And I'll tell you in a moment what the intention is to do with that land in the very center of town. Incredibly valuable land. This new airport, the downside is, of course, it's a fantastic airport. It's beautiful. But the downside is it's not a minute walk into the center of the city or the hotels, which is where the old airport was. but a 45-minute shuttle bus ride, which, but the advantages far outweigh the disadvantages, especially with no longer restrictions of the height of buildings, because the planes landing at the old airport would fly over the roofs, literally fly over the roofs. Now, you know, the old airport was quite large, and today there are plans to utilize that space with lots of new apartments. And since it's very close to where the hotels are already, there's plans to have many more new hotels there. 1,700 new hotel rooms planned there, with more than 2,000 apartments, living apartments for residents, and a lot of space for business people right in the center of town. I want to tell you a little something that isn't talked about too much in Eilat, but once in a while the topic arises. And that's that maybe this resort city will be the very first city that will host casinos. The Las Vegas of Israel, Las Vegas with the C, of Israel. And that will explain to you, those of you who have been in Eilat, in many of the large hotels, are sure to have noticed that the hotels have many more banquet rooms and space and dining rooms and so on than they actually need for the number of rooms that they have in the hotel. And this is what is called a foresight of when and if, of course, you have to add the if, casinos become legal in Israel. Well, Eilat will be the casino capital, and those spare banquet halls will very soon turn into casino halls. So, but the airport area, of course, is going to be residential, hotels, and business. I'm going to show you a couple more slides, stills of some of the views of the airport, the new airport. We'll flick through them. The Ilan and Asaf Ramon Airport. It's called the Ramon Airport. It's named for our astronaut, who you may remember perished in the horrific accident. On the way to Eilat, one can actually stop in Mitzpeh Ramon, where there is a wonderful observatory of the site there, with another monument to Eilat Ramon. An overview of the airport here, and a couple of more slides of the inside of the airport, and almost, well, you know, almost, it's not almost, it is totally an international airport that can take the large size planes as well. And it's very important for Israel because it is the number two, the second real international sized airport in the country. We only had one up until now, and now we have two, which is an important thing for a country to have a couple of airports. You're looking at some of the mountains of Eilat. Eilat is surrounded by mountains on one side, on the eastern side, at a distance, of course, with the mountains in Jordan, the mountains of Edom in Jordan, but on the Israeli side, right beside the last of the buildings, if you like, of Eilat itself, gorgeously colored mountains, where it's the only place in Israel where one can get granite, and also valuable stone from some of these mountains. And we're going to talk about that in a moment, of a unique stone that comes from Eilat. But some of these mountains are, of course, hikeable. And in the next slide, you're going to see one of the popular hiking destinations in Eilat, the Red Canyon, where one can walk through a canyon running through mountains of beautiful red rock. Of course, there is a lot of other colored rocks and mountains in and around Eilat. And from these hills comes the unique stone that we call, because it's only from here that you find it, Eilat Stone. You're seeing some examples of it in front of you. Why is it unique to Eilat? Because as far as I know, it is the only place in the world where you have in the same chunk of stone, malachite, which is the green tint, and azurite, the blue tint, in the same stone. And this gives one the possibility of creating some very special jewelry, which is a very important industry for Eilat. And you're seeing some examples of it here, of Eilat Stone. Many outlets around Eilat and in Eilat concentrate on fashioning this rough stone into all sorts of jewelry. So another thing with these mountains is to drive through them. Quite incredible, beautiful. You're seeing here some of the hotels on the main bay of Eilat with the urban beaches. And let me tell you, there are dozens more beaches heading south towards the Egyptian border that are much less, how do I say it, gentrified than the beaches you're seeing here. Although all of them have facilities, all of them have some sort of change room, toilet facilities, and what they have to enhance the experience there is incredible sea life, coral reefs and sea life like you've never seen, right in your reach along these beach fronts. In the next couple of slides, you're going to get a couple of scenes of Eilat at different times of the day. This is the bay, if you like, the what do you call it, marina of Eilat, where one can actually, from the Red Sea, come in and in large boats, if you like, and visit Eilat in that way. But coming into Eilat as a visitor, you have a couple of choices. You can fly in and fly out. And today, with the necessity of actually flying in from Ben Gurion Airport and then landing 45 minutes away from the city center in Eilat, it becomes more attractive, perhaps, to take the land option, because the flight is so short, and the airport checking in time and so on is so long that it sort of makes the balance between land or air a little more debatable. But coming in on land is quite exciting, because you can come in one way and leave the other way. Coming in from the Dead Sea, for instance, passing through Timna and Yotvata and the Haiba, we'll talk about that in a short moment, and coming into Eilat that way, and then leaving via the Eilat Mountains and Mitzpeh Ramon and Sde Boker, the desert home of David Ben Gurion, and Be'er Sheva is an exciting way to do it. Other things that one can do while one is in Eilat, we're going to talk about in a moment. As you see this overview slide of almost present-day Eilat, we're going to focus now on a couple of the attractions that are recommended in Eilat. Eilat by twilight. Or is it sunrise? No, it's twilight. Here you see the entrance to the coral reef. This is a wonderful attraction in Eilat that I recommend to everyone who is in Eilat. because it's very convenient and very wonderful and special. It's actually a national parks site where one enters with the national parks tickets. I'm sure many of you have been to Israel are familiar with these national park ticket sites, where one can actually at the site hire very inexpensively snorkeling equipment, all the snorkeling equipment you need, and snorkel along a coral reef that is really, really amazing. It's an activity that I strongly recommend. It has all the facilities, of course, including a little beach beside it. And you're going to see in the next couple of slides how one does this. And this is along a little bit of the beachfront of Coral Reef, but one actually has a pier that one, in the next slide you shall see, goes out to and snorkels along to the other pier, looking at some amazing, amazing views as one snorkels through. No experience needed, just familiarity with the use of a snorkel, and one can get in not so deep water an incredible impression and view of sea life. And the next couple of slides are actual slides taken along this reef with GoPro waterproof cameras that you're going to see, that are actual scenes that one would see all along this coral reef, all along the coral reef. It's absolutely amazing. Very much recommended activity. It's certainly a third or half a day thing to do in Eilat. And the beauty of it is you can do it year round, because even in winter, the water temperature is warm. In fact, it's warmer in the water than out of the water, some 70 something degrees, 75, 76 degrees Fahrenheit water temperature. So very, very convenient. We're going to see a couple of more activities in Eilat, and what you're looking at now, of course, is the Dolphin Reef and Dolphin Beach. Right beside the Dolphin Reef, you're seeing a beach where one can actually swim into the water, and one can interact here at this site with the dolphins in various ways. One can go into the beach. One can actually snorkel with the dolphins, and one can dive with the dolphins. There's a little diving facility there, even for non-experienced divers, first-time divers. One can actually dive with the dolphins. Now, no one promises that you will actually have interaction with these dolphins, because the site is really environmentally aware. These dolphins are not captive. They swim in and out of this area through sea gateways underwater that, being smart dolphins, they know, and they leave and they come and they go, and they bring friends sometimes. And apparently they're the only ones smart enough to know the entrance, because we've never had the occasion of a shark, for instance, finding its way into the area. But the dolphins are free to come and go, and they're free to interact or not interact with visitors. So it's just a matter of their mood and your mood, and the way things go, whether you actually get to play with a dolphin or the dolphin plays with you, or whether you see them from a great distance. And of course, diving with the dolphin, even for first-time divers, one can, with an instructor, go down and have an introductory dive with dolphins. It's a wonderful, wonderful activity to do. Now, another activity that I want to talk about is what Wayne mentioned at the very beginning, the Underwater Observatory. What you're seeing here, sticking above the sea, is actually an upside down building. The building goes down onto the seabed, and one can enter this observatory and go down to ocean floor level to see the life there while you're in an aquarium that hasn't got water in it, and the fish are in their natural habitat. Now, around this site as well is also an aquarium, and a very large aquarium where one can get close up through glass to sharks and lots of other sea life. So lots to see there, a wonderful aquarium. And in the next couple of slides, you're going to see some of what you could be doing at the Underwater Observatory, which is incidentally closer south towards the Egyptian Taba crossing as one heads to the southern part of Eilat. In the next couple of slides, you're going to see the inside of this upside down building and part of the aquarium as well.
Reuven, while we're waiting on that next slide, I wanted to, we literally have questions coming in from around the world today. People are, from people who have visited and are enjoying your trip down memory lane, which is so wonderful to see what the origins of Eilat were. I did want to, we had a question come in that goes to your sweet spot. Is there how far back can we go in the history? Is there a biblical history? Are there references to Eilat that go back earlier? What do you know about that?
Great question. No settlement, city, township before the Muslim period, apart from, of course, Neolithic remains further out from the Egyptian period in around 3000 BC, where the Egyptians actually mined the mines at Timna, which are not in Eilat, but there's no evidence of a city or town where Eilat is at present. What was there, of course, in modern times was al-Rashrash that dated from about the 9th century. So Eilat is new. It's not founded on the remains of the name is old. The name actually is old. The name comes from a town city about 3 kilometers away, east towards Jordan, in what is today Jordan, called Etzion Gaber, and in other sources, Elath, with a T at the end, instead with an H at the end instead of a T, which was a port for King Solomon in his time, but it wasn't where Eilat is today. Eilat takes its name, but the ancient Eilat, from, as I said, 9th century onwards, was al-Rashrash, the mother of the strewing.
Well, Reuven, the one thing we do know that was around in the biblical times were those amazing corals and the fish around Eilat, regardless of what it was called in the region. So take us back to your additional slides here before we get to some more questions.
Sure, I want to make a couple of comments about the biblical and historic context of Eilat. It's pretty clear to most. There's no unanimous agreement on this, but it's pretty clear to most that it's just a little bit south of Eilat towards Taba, where the Israelites, led by Moses, make the crossing into the wilderness, into Jordan, and then from that point onwards, on the other side of the bay, make their way all the way down until they cross again at Jericho. So it's not far, literally from where Eilat is today, where this crossing may have taken place. In fact, there are many theories about it, but I saw, I missed the comment, something in the chat, 1 second, that I would like to respond to. Yes, I will be talking about Aqaba, of course, and the Timna copper mines, but Etzion Gava, not from the time period of King Shlomo. Yes, King Solomon, exactly, you're absolutely right. Etzion Gava. The glass bottom boats. They run to this day, of course. They're there, and for a small fee, one can travel along the coral reef and see the scenes without getting wet. So that's also a possibility. Now, we talked about other things one could do from, but let's have a look at another couple of slides from, from the Underwater Observatory, where one can interact with the surroundings. As I said here, you're in a dry aquarium, while the actual aquarium is around you, and you can interact, walk through and interact with the sea life around you. For instance, like this, and get close up to sharks. And in the final slide here, you can even see sometimes a diver who you can say hello to and almost give a high five to. Now, other things one can do in Eilat, and here we have a lot of opportunity for any questions for anyone who's interested. But as I said, 2 ways to come into Eilat, land or air. Actually, 3 ways. You can come in by yacht, if you like, through the Red Sea. But generally for tourism in Israel, it's air travel or land travel. I lean towards the land travel, mainly because of things that one can do coming in from Tel Aviv or Jerusalem to Eilat, passing through the Dead Sea, perhaps even spending a night at the Dead Sea, and then passing through and stopping at Yotvata, the High Bar, which is a nature reserve where endangered animals have been encouraged to proliferate, and some species that have disappeared have been reintroduced. Of course, before you get to Yotvata, you can say hello to the 2,000-year-old date palm, Methuselah, at Keturah. That's en route. And after a visit at the ancient Egyptian mines and the temple of Hathor in Timna, one can drive into Eilat. And the drive out is no less exciting. Or you can do it in reverse, of course, drive in, drive out, depending on where you're coming from. But the drive out, or one way, could be through the Eilat mountains that are spectacular along the Egyptian border, and then through Mitzpeh Ramon, the incredible Machtesh that sometimes is wrongly called a crater. It's actually a Machtesh. And then, of course, Sdei Boker and the desert home of Ben Gurion and Be'er Sheva, and so much to do on the way. So getting to and from Eilat is quite exciting.
Reuven, we should probably share that among those wonderful highlights that you just mentioned, that we actually did an entire webinar that we had so much material, we decided to split this in 2 and give Eilat its own day. So for anyone on the webinar today that's interested in seeing Kibbutz Keturah and seeing Methuselah and seeing all of these highlights south of the Dead Sea, but north of Eilat. Reuven has a wonderful tour with incredible views of nature, the migratory bird patterns. We've had lots of questions from people about the surroundings, obviously the beautiful natural sites to visit, day trips, etc. from Eilat. And as you were saying, anyone coming by car or coming down through that route could actually break it up a bit and visit some other spots as well. But Reuven, the fact that there is the gap and that you have an option now, either by the amazing Ramon Airport, neither you or I have yet been able to walk through those doors yet, so we're looking forward to being able to do that. But the question is, how we had a couple of questions about at least prior discussions of maybe a train that might connect Beersheba to Eilat. There was, in addition to the transportation, someone asked a question about there was plans for a pipeline that was supposed to start in Eilat and work its way up in the north. So I guess, first of all, any updates or any news on any of those infrastructure sort of connection points with the center?
Absolutely. The train is in process. It'll happen. You know, with trains, we're slow. We're only now talking about an underground, partly underground in Tel Aviv, which is way in the process already. But the line to Eilat is coming. It's going to be there, and it's going to link Naharia to Eilat. That's going to be the line from Naharia through Beersheba to Eilat. The Naharia Beersheba line is already there, but it's going to be connected all the way to Eilat, and that's going to make fast train service a big advantage, of course. Now, someone was asking about why the old airport was closed. Well, there were two stories with the airport. One, the airport in Eilat, and one, the airport where one leaving Eilat would land at Sde Dov in Tel Aviv. Sde Dov was closed earlier because of its positioning, because of the land value, and because there is a whole terminal 1 at Ben Gurion Airport that could easily take in the flights. But of course, one coming into Tel Aviv from Eilat would now land 25, 30, 40 minutes, depending on traffic, from Tel Aviv itself. So that was a big minus for those who wanted to come to the center of Tel Aviv from Eilat, and that was a disadvantage. In addition to that disadvantage, now there's the problem of the airport that you don't walk into from the center of the city or the hotel in Eilat. You could literally walk from the hotel to the airport in Eilat. As many of you who've been to the hotels know, it's not far away. A very short cab ride with your suitcases, and you're in the old Eilat airport that is closed down. The Eilat residents were not sad that this airport is closed down. They were very upset about the Tel Aviv airport closing down because of their arrival, but they're pretty happy about the old airport in Eilat no longer being an airport for a number of reasons. One, the height of building restrictions, and we're talking about very close to the center of the city, because of the planes having to land in the center of the city, as it were. Two, the noise coming over the residents and quite constantly. And three, the waste of space in prime land right beside the hotel area and the center town area, and ability to expand northwards towards the Jordan Arava crossing. So the residents of Eilat and the mayor are certainly not upset about the old airport in Eilat closing, despite the inconvenience of it now being 45 minutes away by shuttle from the center of town. But the opportunities it opens up for development are phenomenal.
Reuven, lots of questions, only a couple of minutes left, just real quick. How there was a question about where local workers live, given, you know, is there affordable housing in the area? Are there areas that have developed to help make it more sustainable on that front? Absolutely.
First and foremost, Eilat, because of its distance from everywhere, is VAT free. There's no VAT. No 17% added onto and tacked into the price of everything, including for visitors, incidentally, which is an encouragement for many Israelis to go to Eilat even for shopping. Number two, the cost of living in Eilat is, despite its distance from the center, probably substantially lower than, certainly much lower than living in Tel Aviv. Or in Jerusalem, but I would say equivalent to living in the periphery in Israel. So the cost of living is lower. The Eilat people, I'm sure you have areas in America that you can say the same about, are different. They almost have a slang of their own, certainly a very, I would say, free attitude, and you usually can tell if someone is really from Eilat. They probably also have really great tans as well year round. And Reuven, I'm glad you alluded to that. There was a question earlier, you know, just about that regional distinction, given the fact that it is so geographically isolated, and that it sort of has its own microculture that often seaside towns around the world do. You know, that's not unusual, and also the sort of influx of visitors during normal times, bringing people from all over the world. Well, let me tell you about influx of visitors. Eilat, in the peak of the summer tour season with Israelis, almost doubles its population. Seriously, almost doubles its population. Tens of thousands of Israelis come for various periods to stay in Eilat. Which also has its downside, because the hotels are so busy they can be expensive. They allow themselves to be expensive, which is something that we're in the tour industry desperately trying to control, because, you know, for many Israelis, tourists, I'm talking about Israeli tourists who come into Eilat, it is probably cheaper, to including airfare and everything else, to hop over to Cyprus or to Greece than to actually spend the same amount of time in Eilat. So that's a downside of the popularity of the hotels, and but with more hotels, perhaps that will improve. But Eilat almost doubles its population. So at any given time, a lot of tourists in Eilat, not just from overseas, but many Israelis. There's one other thing I would like to mention about Eilat, if we have the time, that one could, you know, I saw a comment that, I would spend a week in Eilat or longer. You certainly could. And one of the things that you could do while you're in Eilat is to take a side trip to Jordan for a day. I mean Petra. The most, in my view, the most convenient way of visiting Petra is to stay overnight in Eilat, early morning across the Arava crossing, the Rabin crossing as it's called today, into Jordan, where you go straight to Petra, spend the whole day in Petra, and you're back in Eilat in your hotel for dinner.
Well, Reuven, we look forward to doing that agenda. We look forward to that itinerary. Is so scintillating at the moment, just thinking about being back to that sort of level of the beginnings of regional travel and experiences and cultural exchanges. Eilat is a departure point for that in many respects, culturally and the natural beauty we know. And you really gave us a way to look at it, a way to know where we're going to be arriving, either at the airport or one day at some point in the future by train. I look forward to that train ride from Nahariya to Eilat, certainly. Next month, we'll be back, Reuven. We're going to go up all the way up north, even further north than Nahariya, to the kibbutzim of the north. And you're going to take us to places I know that you know very well and can give us a real insider's tour. So we look forward to having you back and having everyone back on our virtual tours. The month of October, boy, we've got a diverse range of programs for everyone to experience. We hope you will all join us this coming Wednesday. We're off air, but then as of Sunday next week, we're back to our regular twice a week schedule on Sundays and Wednesdays. We will be visiting Animation Nation. Many of you maybe saw that an Israeli animator got featured in the New York Times with his view of what the destruction of the Second Temple looked like through animation. We will be bringing you Animation Nation from Jerusalem, the very creators who are making this. We hope you'll come join us. We're going to be visiting the Ben Gurion house and Ben Gurion's, what was inside Ben Gurion's desk that people don't even know about, his bookshelves, his safe next to his bed. We have some incredible stories coming at you this October 3rd, next Sunday, a week from today. We'll do Pilates together with Becky and Naomi. So come join us each week. We're grateful to have you here. It's a little our way of sort of extending time together and being together as a virtual community all around the world. Everyone have a safe week. For those of you celebrating the holidays, Moedim L'Simcha, and have a wonderful, safe, and certainly a sweet new year with all the holidays just sort of reaching the very peak. And we're in fall. Believe it or not, we're in fall here. So we have lots of fall entertainment and engagement for you coming up soon. This is our 50-year anniversary. We're glad to have so many new friends that are with us. We have many friends for Israel. Thanks, everyone, from America-Israel Friendship League.
Shalom to everyone and Chag Sameach.